everyone. Very welcome you all in today's my class. In today's class, I will start a new chapter of our history book, that is chapter 4, Rural Life and Society. Okay, so first I will explain introduction about rural life and society. So in the pre-colonial period, Indian economy was predominantly an agrarian economy. Okay, so agriculture was then the primary occupation of the people, and even industries like textiles, sugar, oil, etc. were dependent on it. So the British government in India did not adopt a pro-Indian agriculture and land revenue policy. So British government introduced three major land revenue and tenure system in India, namely the permanent settlement, okay, the Rayatwari system and Mahalwari system. So the economic exploration of the peasants led to the revolt in future. So, colonial agrarian policies. So, what are colonial agrarian policies? So, their effects on peasants and landlords. So, main objective of the colonial agrarian policies are during the 18th and 19th centuries, Indian economy was primarily dependent on agriculture. It was the main source of livelihood of the people of India, and also a source of revenue. So the East India Company wanted raw materials for their industries in England. It also wanted a lot of revenue to expand their colonies. So it therefore followed an agrarian policy which served their interest. Okay, so types of revenue, which types of revenue of British policies. So first is permanent settlement, second is Rayatwari system, and third is Mahalwari system. So let's all revenue system we will read one by one. Okay, so first I will explain permanent settlement. Okay, so when Robert Clive obtained the Diwani of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa in 1765, there used to be annual settlements of land revenue. So Warren Hastings changed it from annual to quarennial, means 5 yearly, and back to annual again. So during the time of Cornwallis, Lord Cornwallis, so a 10 years decennial settlement, 10 years settlement was introduced in 1793. Okay, 1793. So, and it was non-permanent settlement. Permanent settlement were made in Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, Varanasi division of UP, and northern Karnataka, which roughly covered 19% of the total area of British India. So it was known by different names like Jamidari, Jagirdari, Malguzari and Bisbedari. Okay, so I will explain silent features of PS short name permanent settlement. Okay, so what is silent features of the permanent settlement? So the Jamidars were recognized as the owner of land as long as they paid the revenue to the East India Company regularly. So the Jamidars acted as the agent of the government for the collection of revenue from the cultivators, and the amount of revenue that the jamidars had to pay to the company was firmly fixed and would not be raised under any circumstances. They gave 10 by 11. Okay, 10 by 11 of the revenue collected by them from the cultivator to the government. The jamidars would grant patta, means written agreement, to the rayats. So rayat means peasants. So the rayats became tenants since they were considered the tillers of the soil. So all judicial powers were taken away from the jamidars. So I hope all of you very well understood silent features of the permanent settlements. Let's will understanding merits of permanent settlement. So under this system, many of the wastelands and forests became cultivable lands. So the jamidars became the owner of the land, and the jamidars were made free from the responsibility of providing justice, and the jamidars remained faithful to the British government. This system secured a fixed and stable income for the British government. Next, we will discuss demerits of permanent settlements. So, the British government had no direct contact with the cultivators, and the rights of the cultivators were ignored, and they were left at the mercy of the jamidars. The peasants were almost treated as serfs. This system was made the jamidars lethargic and luxurious, and many conflicts between the jamidars and the peasants across in rural Bengal. Okay, so I hope very well understood all of you this settlement, that are permanent settlement. So next we will understand. I will explain Rayapari system. Okay. So, Rayapari system. So, Rayapari system was introduced by Thomas Munro and Captain Reid in 1820. Okay, 1820. Introduced by Thomas Munro and Captain Reid. So, Captain Reid. Major areas of introduction of Rayapari system included Madras, Bombay, parts of Assam, and provinces, provinces of British India. So, by Rayapari system, the rights of ownership was handed over to the peasants, and British government collected taxes directly from the peasants. Initially, one half of the estimated produce was fixed as rent. This assessment was reduced to one third of the produce by Thomas Munro. The revenue was based on the basis of the soil and the nature of the crop. Rents would be periodically revised, generally after 20 to 30 years. So the position of the cultivators became more secure. In this system, the settlement was made between the government and the trial. So, in fact, the government later claimed that the land revenue was rent and not a tax. I will explain silent features of the Rayat Wali system. So revenue settlement was done directly with the rayats, and measurement of field and an estimate of produce was calculated. Government fixed the demand at 45 to 55% of the produce. Next, effects of the Rayat Wali system. So in most areas, land revenue fixed was excessive. The rare were hardly left with bare maintenance even in the best of season. Under this system, government exploited the farmers instead of jamidars. Okay, so next I will explain about Mahalwari system. Okay, so Mahalwari system, brainchild of Holt Mackenzie was modified version of the Jamidari settlement introduced in the Ganga Valley, the northwest province, part of the central India and Punjab in 1822. Okay, 1822. So Lord William Bentinck was to suggest radical changes in the Mahalwari system by the guidance of Robert Martins Bird in 1833. Okay, so assessment of revenue was to be made on the basis of the produce of Mahal or Mahal means village. So all the proper, prop, all the proprietors of a Mahal were severally and jointly responsible for the payment of revenue. Initially, the state's share was fixed two-thirds of the gross produce. Bentinck therefore reduced to 50% the village as a whole through its headman or Lambardar was required to pay the revenue. This system was first adopted in Agra and Awadh and later extended to other parts of the United Province. The burden of all this heavy taxation finally fell on the cultivators. So, silent features of the Mahalwari system is the Lambardar acted as intermediaries between the government and the villagers, and it was a village-wise assessment. One person could hold a number of villages. So the village community was the owner of the village common land. So the village land belonged to the village community. Effects of Mahalwari system is the Lambardar enjoyed privileges which was misused for their self-interest. This system brought no benefit to the cultivators, and it was a modified version of the Jamidari system and benefited the upper class in villagers. So I hope all three types of land revenue is very well understood. Next we will proceed commercialization of agriculture. So by 18th century, British had acquired Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, and south of India. Since these areas were rich in agriculture, the Britain tried to enrich themselves by making agriculture as commercial activities. So the East India Company used Diwani of Bengal to pay military and administrative expenses. In order to earn huge profit, British purchased the goods at low cost from India and sold them at high rates in England. In order to provide commodities to Western markets, Britain promoted commercialization of agriculture, especially in crops like indigo, cotton, raw silk, opium, pepper, tea, and sugar. So Britain preferred commercial crops because they were more remunerative than food grains. Okay, so the food cater to a wider market and their sell earned huge profit and transportation for funds was less. So the commercialization of agriculture benefited only Britain and the India. So peasants became impoverished and mm, so first commercialization of agriculture, we will discuss about opium. So the British imported large quantities of tea from China and had to pay for it in silver, as the Chinese did not want Western goods. But soon the British came up with a plan of smuggling and selling opium in China after 1765. After, after 1765, the company appointed contractors to produce opium in Bengal. Okay, opium in Bengal and fixed its price. This price was set as low as possible so that it would yield a large profit to the state. So the development of opium as a commercial crop fulfilled two objectives. First, it yielded huge revenue in India, and second, it also created a channel via the purchase of Chinese tea from the remittance of that income to London. Okay. Next, I will explain about indigo. So, indigo, a blue dye extracted from a tropical plant used to color textiles, was in demand in Britain. European indigo planters forced Indian peasants to cultivate the plant on their lands and deliver it to the factory at a fixed price. The condition of the cultivators worsened so much that they often refused to work on plantations. The planters responded by burning their rib crops and houses and capturing the cultivators and their cattle. The local administrative officers and police also supported the British planters against the cultivators. The government enforced the rights of the planters by passing an act in 1830, so under which the cultivators who broke indigo contracts were liable to prosecution. The act, through replanted in 1835, continued to be in force in actual practice. The suffering of the cultivators evoked general sympathy among all classes of Indians. but there was no organized protest for nearly half a century. An organized movement against the oppression of the planters was headed by Vishnucharan Biswas and Digambar Biswas from the village of Chaugacha in the district of Nadia. One by one, more villages joined them, and in course of 2 years, the war of no cultivation of indigo was taken by many cultivators in all districts. Okay, so next I will explain about sugar. Next I will explain about sugar. So in the 1830s, okay, the indigo planters suffered because of fall of prices and sales. They then began to invest in the production of sugar for the London market, where where import duties had been reduced and demand was rising. So large areas of land was given to European sculptors who began setting up sugar plantation in eastern Uttar Pradesh. The local peasants had long produced good for local consumption and sell to other parts of India, but they were now forced to produce a sugarcane juice called roots for delivery to the planters who processed it into sugar. The plant peasants were then forced to deliver the crop to the factory at a low fixed price. So here today's all content is completed. I hope you all understood well. Next topic of this chapter I will explain in my next video. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.